Let's go.
Dude?
Not much, man. It's good to be here.
It's good to see you too. Thanks for having me.
You look so fit.
And man, thank you.
Man, like, first of all, how do you stay in shape, dude? Every time, you go to the gym, you're
do.
always in shape.
I do. Yeah. Well, yeah. I grew up being an athlete. We were just talking about the Philadelphia Eagles, my favorite team. I'm sorry about your Dolphins, but no, I stay active. I play on the Sandlot baseball team around here in Nashville, so I do that every so often. I've been slacking on it the last month, but I usually run like 3 or 4 times a week, couple miles a week. Hit the gym, do lift a little bit. Yeah, I try to stay active because I was an athlete before I was a musician, so I want to always be able to perform in that way too.
And that's important for a musician, right? In shape.
Absolutely.
And just kind of having stamina.
As a singer too, I think I really only started running during COVID. Before that, most of my physical exercise would come from playing team sports with people, getting out and playing pickup basketball or baseball, whatever. And then COVID happened, nobody was getting together, so I was like, I got to do something because I'm going stir crazy. Right. So I bought a pair of running shoes. I started running back in late 2020, and it's been a huge part of just my daily routine since then. Yeah.
Isn't it wild that COVID was 5 years ago?
I know. I think the last time that we had done this interview would have been maybe 2021. So it's been almost 4 years since then. Time flies, man. It really, really does. Yeah.
To see your progression as an artist, man, it's been mind-blowing.
Thank you, Jamie.
Evergreen, the EP. Sorry, I got a frog in my throat. It's out now.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Sorry. Congratulations, dude. Love it. Let's talk about the song, Evergreen.
Yeah.
Dude, that's songwriting. I mean, chills, dude.
Thank you,
What a
Jamie.
spectacular gem of a song.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about it. I mean, there's so many lines in it.
Yeah.
Just incredible. Tell me how
Yeah.
that kind of song came about.
So that song kind of came together over the course of a couple of months. It might have even taken a year to come together. So the original idea from that song I was on tour with an artist named Jonah Kagan. He's become a really good friend of mine. We've done some touring together. And we, after every show, I would usually pick up my guitar and write a little something. And Jonah and I, whenever we had the chance, and our buddy Hunter, we'd all kind of sit down and we'd write something. And we were at a hotel in Albuquerque, New Mexico, just after a show. And we had just been having a conversation when Jonah and I were on a separate tour with him and his dad about, his dad was saying, because we were talking about the process of getting older and aging, and I was getting ready to turn 30 within the year, and obviously that's a big birthday for a lot of people, and it puts a lot of things into perspective, and it's a new chapter, it's a new decade of your life. So that was looming on me, and I was thinking a lot about that and what that would mean for me in my life. And one of the conversations was, he's an older man. I think he's in his early 60s, late 50s, and he was saying, you don't need to stress about that getting older stuff because physically your body might start to change, but mentally I don't feel any different than I did when I was 16, 17 years old. And I was like, what? I relate to that so hard because even though my perspective is so different now than what it was, even 4 or 5 years ago, and my responsibilities and all that stuff is very different, I don't feel emotionally very different than I did when I was 17, 8 years old. Mentally, I still feel like I'm 17, 18 years old, even though a lot has changed, a lot hasn't in a lot of ways. So that was kind of the spirit of the song. And the first verse was actually very different. I don't remember exactly what the lyrics were, but when I originally wrote it, it was something entirely different. I think the first couple lines were the same. I don't remember exactly how it ended up being edited, but it kind of started from that spirit of no matter how many things change, some things just stay the same. And I kind of hope that I always feel the same, the way that I do right now, in the same way that I have since I was 17, 18. And I recognize my body might not always be able to do the same things that it used to, but up here, I just really always want to feel young. How do I stay feeling that way? And what are the pieces of your youth that you can bring in with you into adulthood? And what are the pieces of your youth that you might have to leave behind to become an adult? It's kind of what the spirit of the whole EP ended up being about. But I remember we were sitting in that hotel room. I played them the first couple of lines. We were kind of just, writing songs the way that we write songs. Everybody kind of throwing out ideas. And I remember Jonah had walked away for a couple of minutes and he came back. He was like, what if the chorus was like this? And he sang pretty much the entire chorus. We changed some of the lyrics, but he had the whole thing written of that is perfect. That's it. And we ended up changing keys around, and my producer, Micah, who I worked with on the whole project, we ended up editing some of the lyric together and adding some stuff, and how things go and how things, sometimes get added and taken away. But yeah, it kind of snuck up on us because I had the idea going into the session with Micah. It was the last song that we recorded for the whole project. And by the end of it, I think when we started, it was kind of just this acoustic guitar vocal sort of thing. And the way we built it out, we both looked up at each other at the end of the session. We were like, oh my gosh, that's sick. That might be our favorite song on the project. That kind of came out of nowhere. So it's really interesting. And my girlfriend too, I had showed her kind of the pieces of that song from tour, and I'd played it for her. And I remember she had reacted stronger. Let me put it this way. She reacted stronger to some of the songs on the EP, and she was like, I like that, but it's not my favorite. And then when we finally finished it and I showed her the demo or the, first draft of the song, she was like, wow, I totally slept on that. I think that's my favorite song on the EP. So it's just so interesting how like it all comes together. And how like, I don't know, it starts with an idea, it goes through a lot of different iterations and a lot of different like forms, and then it becomes the final thing. And when it's the final thing, that's it. And it ended up being the title track of the EP because I felt it so strongly encapsulated kind of what I was going through while I was writing the project.
Like you said, so many interesting things there. One of them being like, like I find it fascinating how like some of the best songs, they come like relatively easy. They come like in a flash.
Yeah.
Like it took a while to fully form it.
Totally. Yeah.
But it seems like those like hit songs, the most brilliant songs, and like just reading about, icons and idols and rock Hall of Famers, they seem to come pretty like quickly, don't they?
Yeah. There is something to be said about those songs that just kind of like come through you, and it doesn't really require much effort to think about. You're not thinking about the lyrics super hard, or you do. There is a time and place for like really nailing down the lyric and getting it right, and like there are revisions and edits and stuff that happen. But like when it comes to the melody and what feels right and what feels good to like just get out of you, I think that like going with your first instinct so much of the time is really the way to go, because I think it's so true. People talk about like, being authentic online and how that's and I do think that that's like arguably the most important thing right now. And I think that there's so much to be said about incorporating that into your songwriting process too, of like your first instinct isn't always going to be the best one. I think that there is a lot to be said about fighting for the right lyric and the right melody and all that stuff and making it as good as it can be. But I also think there's a lot to be said about like what just comes out of you without thinking, whatever that thing is that's natural for you is the thing that is often the thing that's the most authentic that people are going to connect with, because that's you, unfettered and not unedited by anybody else. So I don't know, I think there's a lot to be said about that, but I also understand that there's merits to, fighting for it. Cause I do think that they're two sides of the same coin, but in my experience, I have experiences of both, but like, I love Evergreen, and that song came together so quickly. The spirit of it at least did,
It's great to see the reaction of the people. People loved it.
Yeah.
I mean, of course. You talked about like entering your 30s. Welcome to the
Thank you.
floor.
Thank you.
What did you leave behind in your 20s, Dylan?
Yeah, I think I'm still trying to let go of a lot of those things, but I think the fundamental thing that I really, really want to leave behind in my 20s and teens is self-doubt. I really have been working in this industry and been a human being for long enough. It goes back to what we were just talking about like trusting myself and trusting my instincts, and really just believing in my own vision and believing that like, I don't know, believing in my talent and my gifts and trying to use them in the best way that I possibly can to not only, it's not even really necessarily about furthering my career. It's about connecting with other people and, building a community of people who feel the same way as I do, or, I feel like believe in the common values that I believe in. So, yeah, I think the fundamental thing is just self-doubt and just trusting my gut, trusting myself, and believing in that fundamental vision that I have for myself outside of music and beyond. And what I want out of my life and out of this human experience.
It's so fascinating to hear you say that, because there's very few artists that do this better than you, Dylan. And it's kind of just like navigate with ease, like even tempered the highs and the lows of this industry. Like I was just like I told you off camera at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Cher was 52 years old when Believe happened.
That's crazy.
She was in a low point.
Yeah.
We forget, like she had life here for like 20 decades. She was Cher, and that took her back up. It's like this.
Yeah. I don't even think I knew that, to be honest with you. Yeah.
Like careers are like this.
Yeah.
Point. And you seem to always be like on a very even keel. You don't seem to get too high when you are, opening for Bon Jovi or whatever. And you don't seem to get too low either when like, you're going through the raw patches.
Sure.
What is that? Because that is very hard to do, I imagine. You seem to just kind of like always steady.
Well, it's funny that you say that I navigate it well, because I think, in private, if you were to see me, with my girlfriend at home or just with friends, like it is hard. It is really, really hard a lot of the time. And, I post a lot, and I try to be a lot more active on social media than what I've been. COVID was really hard. I think that was a weird time. We were all kind of figuring it out. But like, yeah, no, it's, I think that like, that's a good way of putting it. I think that I do tend to see myself as being an even killed person. And I don't know, I think it's come with just time and experience to know and recognize, okay, I've got this really exciting opportunity in front of me and all this really cool stuff happening. What's the best way that I can leverage that momentum, and try to take it as far as I possibly can right now. And then also to step back and just reevaluate and say, okay, you know what, realistically, if I'm being real, I'm at a little bit lower point. My numbers are a little bit lower, and like attendance is a little bit lower than what it's been, but I have everything in front of me. Like there's no point. I mean, and that's the other thing I think that I would say about what I want to leave behind in, my 20s and my teens and everything up to this point is I think there's a healthy amount of retrospective where you can look back and you can evaluate where you've been, and that helps you know where you're going. I mean, I'm a huge fan of history. Like that's a fundamental part of who I am. I think you have to know where you've been to know where you're going. But I think that has a limit in so much as you can't dwell on the past. You can't say if I did this differently, if I did that differently. I think that that's only effective in so much as you're using it to apply to what's coming next. Got to keep your eyes on the future, because there's nothing I can do. I don't have a time machine. I can't go back and change those things. All I can do is, be reflective about what I've been through up to this point and try to incorporate those lessons that I've learned as things to work on going forward. But anyway, the question you asked is how do you feel like I navigate that really well, and thank you. I appreciate that. I think in private, it's a lot harder for me, and it's my own personal journey outside of a professional one, because I do think it manifests itself in a lot of different ways in my personal life too. But yeah, I mean, I would say that the way that I do that is to just like, what I'm trying to be better about is I'm trying to, try to use the past as a way to enhance my future, and not so much as a thing to dwell on and be like, I should have done this, I should have done that. Like I'm always trying to keep my eyes posted on the future.
Dude, that's great advice. Not just for music, but for everything.
Yeah.
And dude, but one of the high points was like your CBS competition.
Yeah.
Man,
Yeah.
I think you were in Times Square.
Yeah.
Right?
They had my billboard up in Times Square.
About how that thing happened.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
It's really exciting to follow it from like an online distance.
Thank you. Yeah. So it was really cool. So my mom is a big fan of CBS This Morning. And she's been watching it for a very long time, and she really loves Nate Burleson. I also am a Nate Burleson fan because he's a football player. So, but anyway, she's a big fan, and she was watching it one morning. I told you my family's been doing this house renovation. So like every morning my parents were living in the attic of our house for a little while. So she would have CBS Mornings on, and I remember one morning she said she was cleaning around and she heard them talking about this morning's mixtape competition, and they were accepting open submissions for anybody. And I think I called her that day, and she's like, hey, CBS Mornings is doing this competition. If you got the time, I know you're really busy. I was getting ready to release the EP and do the tour and all this stuff. And she's like, if you got the time, you should sit down and you should work something out, see what you can do. My first thought was like, oh, and I was moving actually. And so like I knew that we were packing up. I'm like, Mom, like, I don't know if I have the time. Like, this is silly. But like in the back of my mind, I was also like, because we were talking about the Bon Jovi thing too. That was also my mom being like, you should at least give it a shot. She was right. I won. So I was like, you know what? She's been right before. Let's give this thing a shot. It's worth my time. So I sat down. I worked out the version. I think it came out great. I love that song. I've always loved that song. I can see clearly now. I did my own thing with it, kind of like the live loop thing. I've been playing around Nashville a lot, and I've been trying to do that a lot more. Yeah, thank you. So I just did that. I thought it was really cool. And like, when I enter those things, I really have zero expectation. I hope for the best, but expect, the worst. So I kind of forgot about it. And then I got a call a couple weeks later saying that I'd made the top 10. And then before I knew it, I had my place up in Times Square, and I was in the top 3 of the competition. Then after that, almost got to win. And Kendall Wild, who's another Nashville native, ended up winning it, which is super great. Her voice is amazing. But even to have had the opportunity to be on TV like that and have that national exposure is really, really cool. And then, yeah, I think it led to, some enhanced streaming and some people coming to the shows. And I don't know if you've seen, but like on TikTok right now, I have a cover of a song called Breathe by Anna Nalick. It's like an old song from like the early 2000s that's like been viewed like almost 500,000 times or something like that in the last couple of days. So like, I don't know, just little things like that, and you're talking about the highs and how cool that is. I think like part of the other thing that I really think I want to do in adulthood in my 30s. I've been an adult for a long time, even though I sort of feel more like one now than I have. But anyway, is I want to actually enjoy the little victories and like really take the time to like appreciate the moments that happen. Because if I'm not, I think that's something that I didn't do as well in my early and late 20s. Was always looking like, okay, what's next? But I think it's important to appreciate where you're at too. And I think that I've not done as good a job about that as I could have. And I appreciate you bringing up the CBS Mornings thing. I think that was a really, really cool, awesome part of the summer. I think what's going on my TikTok right now is also really, really cool. And not to mention the EP is my favorite work that I've put out up to this point. So like, yeah, I'm really proud of the work that I've done in the past year, especially on the social media end of things, in the studio, as a writer. I just think that like, I don't know, I feel like I'm in a rhythm, and I feel like I've got, some really cool stuff happening in a way that I couldn't say, I think I had a lot of other cool things happening, 3 years before this. But I think like now I'm just maybe it is that I'm just like appreciating it more, and I'm giving myself more credit for the work that I've done and the hard work that I put in. So
I think, in my opinion, you're like an established, at least Nashville. Like in Nashville, you're like at the top of the like all pop, like
yeah. Well, thank you for saying that. I appreciate
I
it.
believe that.
Yeah.
Like, people like respect you tremendously.
Yeah.
What you're doing.
Thank you.
It's just like enhancing that to the world, which I think is where you're going, man.
Yeah. Thanks, Jamie.
The EP, how hard was it to like cut songs? Because I bet you had like a bunch of them cut.
Yeah, I had a lot of songs. I think it was pretty clear to me. I had a pretty specific vision about what kind of like musical aesthetic I wanted. I really, yeah, and I kind of wanted to do like an indie pop sort of thing, like with live drums and a little bit more upbeat, a little bit more in your face production wise. So there were songs that I had written that lent itself to that production wise, like pretty easily. So to be honest with you, like it was honestly pretty easy to know what 6 songs I wanted. There were other contenders for sure. And it was a process with Micah Talks, my producer, to kind of like play him some stuff, and we kind of put our heads together on what we thought would be the best. And there are still some songs that are sitting out there that I really would like to record and get out. But I think that they exist maybe better in like the acoustic singer-songwriter space than like this project, which is more indie pop rock. So yeah, but there were like, I don't know, 12, 13 songs. We edited it down to 6 and ended up picking 6 of them. And a lot of them were being written in real time too. So 3 of the songs, the first 3 songs that we recorded were What It Was, Hold On, and The Ring. That's a good one. Yeah, thank you. And those are the first 3 songs that we recorded, and then the other 4 came after that. So, and those kind of all happened in real time. Yeah. Oh, History Repeats, I'm sorry, was the 3rd song. And then The Ring, Evergreen, and Loving You and Letting Go were all recorded like in real time after the fact. Yeah. Yeah. And really interesting too, like, just, I could say one more thing about that. Like, I really love working with Micah Talks. He's a great producer. And I think all the writers who were involved in this project, it wouldn't have existed without them and their help and their input. Management was super, super helpful introducing me to Micah and kind of guiding us through the process. And, Micah's management, it's just like, it takes a village of people, and I'm really, really proud of the team that is around me that helped bring this project to life. Because
For you, what makes a good producer, Dylan? Like to you?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think open-mindedness, and I think being a good communicator, and I think that goes 2 ways. I think that the artist has to be able to communicate in some kind of like a clear way what it is that they're looking for, and have at least good references about what they want their stuff to sound like, But I also think the producer has to be willing to listen to that and willing to incorporate it in a way that is like, first of all, I think that they have to, if you're a producer, there's no way to, eliminate bias from what you do. You want to enjoy what you're working on as well. But I think that it's like, it comes from, I think why Mike and I work so well together is we have so many common interests musically. Like we love so many, like deeply love so many of the same bands. Sure. And so I think when that's the case, and like, you don't have to like push someone one way or the other to make it sound like this thing or that thing. Right. I also think like when you're trying to do that too much, then you end up kind of just sounding like the references that you want. But like, I think we have such a firm common love for the same kinds of music that those things have no choice but to manifest themselves in the productions. So I think that that's really why Mike and I really worked well together, and I would hope to continue to work well together. I'm sure we're going to be recording together in the near future. And I think it's that. I think it's just like from the first time we met, we got to talking about music, and like he loves Pink Floyd, and like he loves Radiohead, and he loves like a lot of that. Pink Floyd maybe more prog rock, but like a lot of the indie rock stuff that like I really wanted to channel in this EP. So I think I knew it was going to be an easy way to get there because he loved it himself, and we were going to be on the same page about what we wanted it ultimately to sound like. So I think number one is being a good communicator and being able to like hear yes or hear no and be okay with that. And I also think it's like just having a common understanding of what we're driving for. We want this EP we want this project to sound like. We want this music to sound like. And whether we share common interests and like if we're on the same page musically about what we like and what we don't like, So yeah, I think that's part of, for me, what makes a really, really great producer.
Amazing, dude.
Yeah.
So good.
Thank you.
It translates perfectly. Nothing's lost.
Yeah.
Like the recorded version.
Thank you.
Dude, let me leave you with this.
Sure.
You're gonna play a song for us, and we're excited. Your TikTok, you mentioned it. You're like really enjoying it. So many examples come to mind. The suit with the swimming
Yeah.
Just like all these ideas, where do they come from? Like the suit one, like and like the execution. You seem to be like just like having out.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Jamie. I appreciate that. I've really, that's another thing I've really tried to be better about in the last couple of years is just like having fun and being myself and trying some different things. And it's been a lot of fun. I think specifically the suit thing kind of came from, the whole concept and process of this project was graduating from childhood or, young adulthood into adulthood.
Sure.
And I think kind of the play that I was working on with some of that content was like wearing the suit, which is very indicative of like a buttoned-up professional and an adult in environments and doing things where a suit did not belong. Skating, swimming in the pool, diving in the pool, or even being in the woods or being in my room or being in bed. So like it's kind of a play on, adulthood still hanging on to me when I'm still trying. It's like, kind of this push and pull of like still being a kid while being an adult. Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah.
And that applies to like the way you conduct yourself. Like you're so youthful in your performance, and that's why people love you.
Sure.
And I think that it's great to see, how fans love you, peers love you, the industry loves you, man. I think a lot has to do with that.
Thanks, Jamie. I really appreciate that, man.
Kind of aspire to that. We want to still be young at heart, and
Yeah.
kind of like not let go of that.
For sure. And I grew up in a family where my dad, we were just talking about him, he's thinking about retirement and, he's still such a boy in so many ways. And like, but obviously, he's also an adult and he's built a beautiful life for me and my brothers and sister and for my mom. And, I know he's left a lot of things about his youth behind in order to be like a functioning adult and raising a family. So like, I want to be like my dad, I want to be young at heart, but still an adult who's able to handle the responsibilities of being an adult, being a family man and being a father one day. So, I'm just like trying to find the best way to manage that transition in the career that I've chosen. And I know that I'm going to get there. It's just, this EP is about what I've chosen to carry with me and what I'm going to leave behind.
Man, you're on the perfect journey. And I have some context. I'm sorry to talk about it again, but I just came back from the Rock Hall.
Sure.
You talk about Foreigner, Cher, Kool and the Gang that have done it for many, many years, man. And you start seeing patterns.
Sure.
And the pattern is it's a longie. And if you stay true to yourself, if you stay true to your values, to the principles, and always chasing good art, which is all the things you're doing, check. Guess what, dude? An amazing career.
Yeah. You bet. This is my song, the title track off of my new EP, Evergreen.
Same black van since 21. Same old bands and the same old songs, with a tendency to act on a half-baked thought. And I still hesitate when I really ought to talk. 30 feels like 17. And I just might be evergreen. 'Cause I grew up, I don't feel any older, and I found love. It's hard to get to know her, and I still have dreams that keep me up at night. Maybe one day I'll get the chip off of my shoulder, 'cause I'll always be the youngest of my brothers, and I'm still learning one day at a time how to be young for my whole life. Big city rent, 3 part-time jobs. I've got everything I need, but not all that I want. I keep telling myself it'll all pay off. When you're a full-time dreamer, can't count no cost. 'Cause I grew up, I don't feel any older, and I found love. It's hard to get to know her, and I still have dreams that keep me up at night. Maybe one day I'll get the chip off of my shoulder, 'cause I'll always be the youngest of my brothers, and I'm still learning one day at a time. How to be young for my whole life. 'Cause I grew up, I don't feel any older, and I found love. It's hard to get to know her. I still have dreams that keep me up at night. Maybe one day I'll get the chip off of my shoulder, 'cause I'll always be the youngest of my brothers. And I guess some things don't change, and that's alright. I'm still learning one day at a time, how to be young for my whole life.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here for the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from J-Rod Concert Media.